You know that incredibly frustrating feeling when you find out your airline ticket costs double what the person sitting right next to you paid? Well, let's dive into it, because that exact scenario perfectly exposes the invisible hand that dictates the cost of literally all our daily purchases. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely demystify the often abstract economic concept of price elasticity. We're going to translate all that theory into a really captivating look at real-world pricing power. And honestly, by the end of this, you are going to see every single price tag in a completely new light. Here's what we are covering today. First, the basics of elasticity. Second, testing your pricing power. Third, what drives consumer demand. After that, the impact of advertising, followed by the supply-side equation. And finally, a case study on airline pricing. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the basics of elasticity, the hidden code of consumerism. So price elasticity of demand, or PED for short, is basically just a measure of how touchy we are when prices change. Mathematically, it's the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. But what does that really mean? It's just measuring your willingness as a buyer to completely walk away when a price tag goes up. Since price and demand almost always move in opposite directions, the resulting number is technically negative, but economists usually just look at the absolute value to understand the sheer magnitude of our price sensitivity. Think about your daily run for takeaway coffee. If your local cafe suddenly bumps up the price by $1, you're probably going to be pretty sensitive to that change, right? You'll just walk down the block to the next place because you have tons of substitutes. That is a classic example of elastic demand. But flip that around and think about painkillers. If you've got a massive splitting migraine, that is an immediate necessity. You've got very few substitutes in that moment, so you'll pay pretty much whatever it takes for relief. You are completely insensitive to the price, and that is inelastic demand. Moving right along to Section 2, testing your pricing power with the total revenue test. This test is basically the ultimate acid test for any business owner. Imagine you decide to raise your price, but your total revenue actually drops. Yikes. That means your demand is elastic. Your customers jump ship way faster than a higher price can make up for. Now, what if you raise your price and your total revenue actually goes up? Bingo! You've got an inelastic, captive audience. People kept swiping their credit cards despite the hike. And if your revenue doesn't budge at all, well, that's called unit elastic demand. Your price increase perfectly canceled out the customers you lost. Let's put some real numbers to this to see how a business might crunch this data. Imagine a company drops a product's price from 50 rupees down to 48, hoping to lure in some more buyers. Because of that little drop, their demand jumps from 100 units up to 110. If you run that through our formula, percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price, you get an elasticity of negative 2.5. Because the absolute value is greater than 1, it tells the business loud and clear, your product is relatively elastic. That tiny price drop triggered a much bigger jump in demand. All right, Section 3, what drives consumer demand? Let's look at consumer surplus and a few other key factors. Let's talk about consumer surplus. It's essentially the gap between the absolute maximum you'd be willing to pay and what you actually hand over at the register. When elasticity is high, meaning you've got tons of other options, sellers really don't have much pricing power. Your consumer surplus is pretty low because the market price is already hovering right near your maximum limit. But when elasticity is low, sellers hold all the cards. They know you're willing to pay top dollar, so they can crank up their prices, extract that massive consumer surplus, and turn it straight into extra profit for themselves. Now, there are 5 major factors that really dictate how price sensitive you are. First up, the nature of the commodity. Pure necessities, like salt, are totally inelastic, but luxuries, like a brand new air conditioner, highly elastic. Second, close substitutes. The more alternatives you have, the more elastic your demand is. Third is diversity of uses. If a product can be used for a bunch of different things, demand tends to be more elastic. Fourth is your income level. Generally, higher income folks are a lot less sensitive to price changes, while lower income consumers are highly elastic. And lastly, time horizon. In the short run, you're kind of stuck in your habits, making your demand inelastic. Give it a few years, though, you'll find alternatives, making your demand way more elastic in the long run. But you know, the price of the item itself isn't the only trigger here. We also have cross-price elasticity, which shows us how demand shifts when competitor prices change. Like if the price of tea suddenly skyrockets, your demand for its substitute, coffee, might shoot up right along with it. Then there's income elasticity. That tracks how your buying habits shift as your paycheck changes. Get a big promotion at work? You're probably going to buy more normal goods, like nice restaurant meals, and way fewer inferior goods, like instant ramen. Okay, but put yourself in the shoes of a business owner. Let's say you know your demand is highly elastic and incredibly sensitive to price. How do you fix that? That brings us to section 4, the impact of advertising and how it literally changes the elasticity equation. There's this fascinating, massive study published on Repec that looked at 350 different fast-moving consumer brands over 6.5 years. And the ultimate takeaway, advertising actually decreases the magnitude of price elasticity. It's like it builds an invisible psychological moat around a brand's price tag. By creating that sense of differentiation and strong brand preference, these companies essentially dial down your sensitivity to their pricing. And the monetary gains they reap from this newfound pricing power are absolutely massive, especially for the high-end, expensive brands. What's really wild is that the benefit of this advertising is overwhelmingly direct. We're talking 97.5% of the effect. That means running an ad immediately decreases price sensitivity among the people who were already considering buying your brand. Only 2.5% of the effect is indirect, sort of trickling down by slowly changing the general mindset of the market. Essentially, advertising is just hyping up your existing audience, convincing them your product is absolutely worth the premium. It makes them incredibly loyal to the point where you can bump up the price and they won't even blink. Now let's completely flip the script. Section 5, the supply-side equation and the constraints producers face. While demand is all about us, the buyers, price elasticity of supply, or PES, looks at the folks actually making the stuff. It's the percentage change in the quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. In everyday language, it just measures how fast and efficiently a company can ramp up their production when market prices spike so they can actually cash in on those higher potential profits. And just like us consumers, producers are totally handcuffed by time. In the short run, supply is super inflexible. It's highly price inelastic. I mean, you can't just magically build a brand new factory or hire and train 1,000 new workers overnight, right? But give it a little time, the long run, and supply becomes incredibly adaptable and highly elastic. Companies can reallocate their resources, lay the bricks for those new factories, and really crank up supply to meet that hot market price. Producers basically face 4 main physical hurdles. First up is spare capacity. If a factory has idle machines or workers just sitting on the bench, they can ramp up supply incredibly fast. That's elastic. Second is the level of stocks. If you sell storable goods like CDs or t-shirts, you're highly elastic because you just pull boxes out of the back room. But if you sell fresh apples, super inelastic. They're gonna rot. Third is substitutable factors. If your labor force can easily jump from making product A to product B, you've got high elasticity. And finally, barriers to entry. If it costs $1 billion just to start a company in your industry, the overall market supply is going to stay stubbornly inelastic for a very long time. Let's bring all this mouse together. Section 6, case study on airline pricing, putting theory into practice. You see, airlines don't just sell seats on a plane, they sell to hyper-specific market segments. Take a long-haul international business traveler. They represent the highest level of inelasticity. Why? Because they literally have to be at a specific meeting in London by Tuesday morning, and their corporate card is paying for it anyway. Price variation has almost zero effect on them. But then look down at the short-haul leisure traveler. This is a family of 4 just trying to go to the beach for the weekend. If the flight is too expensive, they'll just pack up the minivan and drive or stay home. They have the greatest elasticity and are heavily influenced by every single dollar change in price. And guys, this is the exact answer to the question we started with. Airlines operate in an oligopoly, a market where only a few massive players exist. And they use ridiculously sophisticated yield management software to charge completely different prices for the exact same flight just to perfectly exploit those varying elasticities of demand. They track exactly who is a desperate business traveler and who is a flexible vacationer, usually by looking at how close to take off you're booking. Their entire goal is to squeeze every last drop of consumer surplus out of every single seat. They will gouge the inelastic buyer for an absolute fortune and simultaneously offer a massive discount to the elastic buyer just to make sure the plane takes off full. So we've really explored the invisible forces pulling the strings of the market today, from your corner coffee shop all the way to the airport terminal. Now that you're clued into the hidden mathematical code of elasticity, I have to ask, how is this going to change the way you look at your very next purchase? I really hope this explainer leaves you questioning who truly holds the power, you or the seller, the absolute next time you reach for your wallet. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.